The people who last are not the ones who push until they break. They're the ones who know how to recharge before the system starts failing. That distinction matters because most driven people are still using a broken model. They push hard, they ignore the signals, they override fatigue, and they keep going because the work matters, the stakes are real, and there's always another demand waiting. Then eventually, something gives. Sleep breaks, patience disappears, focus drops, decision quality gets worse, the body gets louder, the mind gets foggier. And only then do they start thinking about recovery. A weekend off, a few nights of better sleep, a holiday, a vague promise to slow down. That's the crash and recover model. And it's a flawed strategy. If your only recharge strategy kicks in after you're already depleted, you're not managing recovery, you're managing damage. Welcome back to Outperform the Storm. I'm Martin Soorjoo, performance strategist. This episode is about a more effective approach to recovery. Not recovery after collapse, but continual recharge. Not as wellness, not as self-care, not as some soft lifestyle upgrade, but a serious performance discipline. Because burnout prevention is not about becoming less ambitious, it's about becoming harder to deplete. It's about reducing avoidable energy leakage, building recharge protocols into your working day, using data intelligently before your system starts falling apart. That's how you develop and protect a sustained edge. And that's what we're going to look at today. Most people think burnout happens suddenly. It doesn't. Usually it accumulates, meeting to meeting, message to message, decision to decision, conflict to conflict. The board call ends, but your body's still activated. The difficult email is dealt with, but your jaw is still tight. The client problem moves on, but your nervous system doesn't. The cash flow issue, the team issue, the family issue, the decision you are avoiding, they all leave a residue, and that residue carries forward. You go from one scene to the next without clearing the last one. You enter the next meeting with the physiology of the previous threat still running in the background. And by the end of the day, you're not just tired, you're loaded. And that's the problem. Most people are not just working hard, they are carrying too much forward and they are leaking energy everywhere. And then they wonder why they feel fried at 4 p.m. The issue is not always the workload. Sometimes it's the way the workload is being carried. And this is where conventional burnout conversation becomes pretty damn useless for serious people with real responsibility, because the advice is usually some variation of slow down, do less, take time off, set boundaries. And sometimes that advice is right, but many people don't have the luxury of simply removing the pressure. The business still needs decisions, the team still needs leadership, the market is still moving, and the responsibility is still there. So the better question is not always, how do I escape the pressure? The better question is, how do I carry pressure with less internal damage? How do I stay sharp while the pace remains high? How do I keep performing without silently eroding the system that makes that performance possible? That requires a different operating rhythm, not crash and recover, but the ability to recharge continuously. There are 4 steps. Firstly, reduce the leaks. Secondly, build recharge into the day. Thirdly, monitor state before performance drops. And on that note, my voice seems to be going, so bear with me. Fourthly, modulate when needed. So let's take those one by one. The first lever is reducing the leaks. There's an assumption that energy is only lost through hard work, and it isn't. You lose energy through unnecessary context switching, through open loops, unmade decisions, half-finished conversations, low-value meetings, notifications that keep dragging your attention sideways, emotional overreaction to things that don't deserve your full force. When every email becomes a small emergency, when every delay creates irritation. Sound familiar? You get the picture. This is one of the biggest differences between sustained edge and slow depletion. The issue is not simply how much you do, it's how much unnecessary internal friction you're creating while doing it. Before you ask how to recharge faster, ask where your energy is leaking. Because if you keep leaking energy all day, no recovery protocol is going to save you. You're trying to fill a bucket with holes in it. So the first move is simple. Subtract or reduce unnecessary switching, low-value meetings, open loops, emotional spikes over low-stake noise, situations where your body is burning emergency energy for something that quite simply doesn't deserve it. This isn't about being relaxed. You save your energy for what matters. You don't spend your best physiology on inbox churn. So that's the first lever, reduce the leaks. The second lever is building recharge into the working day. This is the part that most high achievers resist because they still see breaks as something that happens after work. Wrong. The break is not the reward after work. The break is what protects the quality of the next round. And that's the mindset shift. If you work in 90-minute blocks or 60-minute blocks or whatever rhythm suits your reality, the point isn't the number, the point is the principle. Human beings are not designed for permanent output. You are designed for waves. Mobilize, perform, recover, return. That's the rhythm. But most people violate it. They mobilize in the morning and then they never properly stand down. They go from deep work to calls, calls to messages, messages to meetings, meetings to problem solving to calls. No transition, no discharge, no reset. Just one long blur of activation. That's not high performance. That is poor state management. A 3-minute reset between meetings can change the next meeting. Step away from the screen, lengthen the exhale, relax the jaw, drop the shoulders, look out into the distance, walk outside if you can. Let the body register that one round has ended before the next one begins. That matters, because if the body never receives the signal that the last demand is over, it keeps running the same stress chemistry into the next demand. And then people call that a hard day. Often it's just not a hard day, it's a badly recovered day. Micro breaks matter. Walking outside matters. Nature exposure matters. Light matters. Movement matters. Stillness matters. A 10 or 20-minute yoga nidra or NSDR session in the afternoon can be the difference between dragging yourself through the final third of the day and returning with something closer to real capacity. For many people, myself included, NSDR is one of the most useful tools available because it gives the system a genuine downshift without needing a full sleep cycle. This is where ancient practice and modern science start to meet. Yoga Nidra or NSDR is not new. The principle may be newer in the performance world. The underlying practice is very old. Deliberately move the system into a state where restoration can occur. Not collapse, not scrolling, not numbing out. Restoration. And there's a critical difference, which brings us to the third lever. Monitor state before performance drops. This is where technology can help. Wearables can give you real-time and historic state data, resting heart rate variability, sleep efficiency, recovery trends, and readiness signals. None of these metrics are perfect, and some wearables are clearly suboptimal. You should never outsource your judgment to a wearable, but used intelligently, the right wearables can show useful patterns. If your resting heart rate is elevated, your HRV is suppressed, your sleep is fragmented, and you wake up already irritated, that's information. The point is not to become obsessed with the data. The point is to catch the slide earlier, before you become the person making important decisions from degraded hardware. Your wearable tells you what may be happening, but you still need judgment, and your subjective data matters too. Ask yourself, how sharp am I? How reactive am I? How quickly am I getting irritated? How much caffeine do I need to feel normal? How long does it take me to focus? Am I avoiding deep work? And am I waking up restored or simply less destroyed? Those questions matter because burnout prevention requires earlier detection. You can't keep waiting until the smoke alarm becomes a fire. The fourth lever is modulation. Once you notice your state changing, you need ways to shift it. And this is where the menu matters. Not one tool, a menu. Because different people respond to different interventions, and the same person may need different tools at different times. Sometimes you need a fast reset, 60 to 90 seconds, a physiological sigh, tactical breathing, panoramic gaze, jaw and shoulder release, a short walk from the screen, a few minutes of slow nasal breathing. But sometimes you need a deeper rest, 5 to 20 minutes, a walk in nature, yoga nidra, mobility, a quiet room with no input, a breath practice, sound. And sometimes you need a real recharge, not a hack, sleep, a proper evening shutdown, a low stimulation environment, a day with fewer cognitive switches, time outside, training intelligently rather than punishing yourself, real food, strategic white space. The key is matching the intervention to the level of depletion. You don't fix deep depletion with one breathing exercise, but You also don't need a full weekend away every time you're slightly activated before a call. And that's the art. Right tool, right moment, right dose. And that's why I've been obsessed with both ancient practices and modern technology for the past 25 years. A wearable can tell you that your system is under strain. A modulating device may help shift state. A breath practice can bring you down quickly. A walk outside can clear the nervous system and the mind. And Yoga Nidra can restore your capacity in the middle of the day. But none of these is the system. The system is your ability to notice, intervene, and return to capacity. And that's a skill. So what does this look like in a normal working day? Let's make it practical. You wake up, but before you attack the day, check your state. Not obsessively, just honestly. How did you sleep? Do you feel flat, restored, wired, heavy, sharp? If you use a wearable, look at the trend. Not one number in isolation, the trend. And then make an intelligent call. Is today a push day? Is it a steady day? Or is it a protect capacity day? That matters, because one of the mistakes high achievers make is to treat every day as if the body owes them the same output. Well, it doesn't. The goal is not to become fragile. The goal is to become adaptive. And some days you push, and some days you hold steady, and some days you protect the system so you can push harder tomorrow. That's not weakness, that's operational intelligence. Then protect the first work block. Before inbox, before other people's urgency, before the world gets a vote, one priority, clear target, no unnecessary switching. And then when that block ends, don't just stumble into the next demand. Reset, 3 minutes, move, breathe, look into the distance, drop the shoulders, clear the last round, and then enter the next one. At midday, get outside if you can, even 10 minutes. Light, movement, air, distance from the screen. This is state regulation. The afternoon is where the warning signals usually appear. Energy drops, irritability rises, thinking gets narrower, people start compensating, more caffeine, more urgency, force, emotional intensity, and that's often where bad decisions get made. Not because the person lacks intelligence, but because their system is degraded. That's the point in the day when a real reset can protect your edge. 10 minutes of NSDR, a walk, a mobility break, a breathing protocol, a few minutes with a modulating device. No input, no phone, no pretending that scrolling counts as recovery, because it doesn't. And then at the end of the day, close down. Do not let work bleed indefinitely into the evening. Close the loops. Write down tomorrow's first move. Close the open tabs. Create a boundary between the work state and the evening state. Because if you don't close the day follows you into the evening, and then that follows you into sleep. And then you wake up tomorrow carrying yesterday. That's how depletion compounds. A lot of what people call recovery isn't recovery, it's escape. Scrolling till midnight is not recovery. Neither is alcohol to shut the system down. Netflix while half checking email, more caffeine to override fatigue. A lot of so-called recovery is just further depletion. Real recharge leaves you ready for the next round, more restored, cleared, and capable. If your recovery leaves you more wired, more numb, or less ready for tomorrow, call it what it is. It wasn't recovery, it was sedation or distraction or avoidance. And I say that without judgment because I've done it all. The late nights, the overwork, the forcing, the pretending I was fine because I could still perform. The problem is that performance on the outside can hide depletion on the inside for a while, but not forever. Eventually the bill becomes due. And the more responsibility you carry, the more expensive that bill becomes, which is why continual recharge is not a luxury. It's not something you do once the work is finished. Sustained edge is not built in heroic bursts. It's built in the small recoveries that most people fail to take. The reset between meetings, the walk before the difficult call, the decision not to spend adrenaline on nonsense, the shutdown ritual, the honest reading of your own data, the humility to intervene before you're forced to stop. That's what separates the person who lasts from the person who burns bright and burns out. So here's the challenge for this week. Run a continuous recharge audit. Ask yourself the following 5 questions. 1. Where am I leaking the most energy during the working day? 2. Where do I carry less stress from one scene into the next? 3. What's my lowest friction recharge protocol? 4. What data tells me I'm starting to degrade? And lastly, where can I install one recharge point into every workday this week? Run it for 7 days Observe what changes: energy, focus, irritability, decision quality, sleep, your ability to be present at the end of the day. This is all trainable. You don't need to wait until you're broken to rebuild. You can train the system earlier. You can protect your edge before it disappears. And you can work hard without slowly destroying the machinery that makes the work possible. This isn't retreat. This is how you last. This is how you stay sharp when the pace keeps rising. That's sustained edge. I'm Martin Soorjoo. Thanks for joining me. This is Outperform the Storm.